Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch Little Women.
Yes, Little Women. And to be clear, we're talking about the 94 version, which is my personal favorite. We're talking about the Winona Ryder version, as I've identified her before, the Gen X Pixie Princess, except this time she's in the 1860s instead of the 90s, but it's okay. She's still great. And Christian Bale, Susan Sarandon, Samantha Mathis, Kirsten Dunst.
Everybody's in this movie.
Yeah.
Eric Stoltz, Gabriel Byrne.
Yes. And I have to identify which one because there have been oodles of versions of this movie made, and a lot of other properties that were, I contend, based on it. But we're talking about the 94 version. Mm-hmm. I feel like, well, hold on. We'll get to that in a second. So, Dave, what did you know about this, about Little Women in general, or this movie before we watched it?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
Nothing.
Nothing? Really?
Nothing. Winona Ryder's in the movie. That's all I knew.
You didn't know that Beth died?
No.
Spoiler. Sorry. You know, what is this? Yeah. I feel like if you're listening to this, you know that. But yeah, you didn't know that at all?
No, I didn't know anything. I've never seen this. I've never read the book. I knew nothing about Little Women.
Okay. So this brings up a problem. And so there was a new version of Little Women released in 2019. And around that, there was some discussion of men are far less likely to go see this, men and boys, because it is, quote, a girl's story. Mm-hmm. That is something that I appreciate about it. I like how the men in the story are kind of superfluous, which we will get more into later on. But I don't like, and this is a theme I think that we've seen. I see it in parenting, right? Anything, the boy version or the male version is the default, and the girl thing is separate, right? So women would go to a movie that was about mostly all male cast. Men won't go to a movie that is mostly all female. You don't read Little Women in school the way we do Huck Finn, etc. And I think the whole issue of, oh, this is a female story, so we're going to put it over there. It's not in the canon the way male stories are. That's problematic. I am far from the first person to notice this.
Yes.
And I am not even among the most eloquent to say this. But yeah, that you knew nothing about it. I am a little shocked. I mean, not really, but
yeah,
but I mean, kind of.
So in my defense, when this movie came out in 1994,
yeah,
it looked boring.
What?
So
okay, well, having seen it, was it boring? I mean, there's no explosions.
Right.
Sure.
To 1994 me, yes, this movie was boring.
Sure.
Like, am I able to engage with things on a higher level? And even just a few years later, was my appreciation for film grew. Would I have been able to engage with this on a different level? Yes.
Yeah.
But this movie came out right around the time of The Crow.
True.
So you think about what I was watching and what my expectations were for a movie at that time. This looked boring.
Fair point.
Dances with Wolves looked boring.
Well, okay.
When it came out, like, you know, there are, like, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but given the time of frame for me, it wasn't that, ooh, it's a girl movie.
Yeah.
It was, wow, that looks boring.
It wasn't that it had girl cooties. It was just, like, yeah. Okay, fair.
And there are movies that look boring to me that I'm sure are not. You know, like if you show me a preview for I don't know, some movie that isn't actually boring.
Yeah.
But if they don't promote it quite right, and I don't mean it doesn't have explosions. I mean, like in 1994, I might have meant it doesn't have explosions. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you know, it didn't compel me. It didn't grab me. And for me, at least, it wasn't that it was called Little Women or didn't have anything to do, didn't have any explosions in it. It just didn't compel me to watch it.
Yeah. Oh dear. Well, that's true. Yeah, you make a good point about 15-year-old boys not known for their broad interests.
Let me watch this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so now What did you think? Do you still think it's boring?
It's not like define boring. You know,
You probably never would have watched this on your own.
probably not. I enjoyed it. I thought it was well made and well acted, and like it was. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's a drama.
Yes.
Like there is, I think. There's something inherently boring about dramas, but like not boring in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like it does exactly what it should do,
which is make you feel intensely.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the intense feelings, I should explain. So we watch a movie together and then we go straight into recording. So at any given time, we are no more than like 3 hours removed from the movie. I was in tears on and off for like the last half of the movie, which is par for the course. Like this is pretty much every time I watch this, there's tears.
Yeah.
So just to warn you, if I start crying while talking about any of this stuff, that's why. That does not mean you should not watch this, but be prepared. If you are in a rotten mood, I don't, unless you need to let off steam, I don't know. So
yeah. To quote the Ghost of Christmas Past from Scrooge, Niagara Falls.
I was holding it in. I was behind you, and you could probably hear me sniffling.
I was purposely not looking at you.
Yes.
I didn't want to make you self-conscious.
I held it in though. I'd sniffled, but like I could have gone full waterworks and sobbed, and I
Please
didn't.
do. Like
I held back.
Live your best life.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But so, if you are like Dave and you don't know anything about this movie, here is the synopsis from IMDb. Louisa May Alcott's autobiographical account of her life with her three sisters in Concord, Massachusetts in the 1860s. With their father fighting in the American Civil War, sisters Jo, Meg, Amy, and Beth are at home with their mother, a very outspoken woman for her time. The story tells of how the sisters grow up, find love, and find their place in the world. Does that sound like what we watched?
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, like any one paragraph description of a movie, it falls very short.
Sure.
But yes, that's a good summary.
Well, I think it is similar to several other movies that we've watched. The description is kind of bland because it's more, I think, character driven than plot driven.
Sure.
The plot is, they grow up and then the romance thread through it kind of drives it as well. Josephine is played by Winona Ryder, and she's sort of the main character. She is the fictional version of the real life Louisa May Alcott. And she is she's a tomboy, I guess, tomboyish, boisterous.
Sure.
Bucks convention, is clumsy, all these things. And is a writer. And then in the end of this movie, the book that she writes is Little Women. I don't remember if in the book version that is how it ended up. But Christian Bale is Teddy Theodore Logan, right? Lawrence, their next door neighbor. And he falls in love with her. And she says, no, I can't be with you. And then he eventually falls in love with her sister, Amy, and marries her. And Jo ends up married to a professor played by Gabriel Byrne. And they eventually, there are 2 more sequels to the book. They found a school for like naughty little boys, and I haven't read either of them. I'm serious. There's a lot of.
Have you not read the one about the School of Naughty Little Boys? Because it's about boys. Huh?
Well.
Huh?
So I believe I've read like little bits here and there, and it was very like preachy.
Sure.
Lots of, now so-and-so, you oughtn't be naughty. You need to wash your hands, Yeah, I like Little Women almost in spite of itself because I've read a couple of other of Alcott's books. There's the sequels to Little Women. And then there's 2 books, that are set around the same time, 8 Cousins and then A Rose in Bloom, which are similar in that it has this undercurrent of freeing women from their trappings, so to speak.
Yeah.
this girl who's been very petted and cosseted and protected goes to live with her uncle. She's an orphan or something. And this big boisterous family, and he's like, you don't need to wear a corset, you don't need to wear heels, you need fresh air, and da da da, and things like that. And that's kind of preachy too. And it's like you read it, and then after a while you're like, I don't think I like this very much.
I want to read the version of the book that Jo is writing in the movie before she writes Little Women.
Yes,
that's like the
dagger and the
like vampires and strychnine and all these daggers. I want that book. Like I want to know, did she? Like, is that a flourish in the book that she included, or before she wrote serious books, was she actually writing like that kind of stuff? Because I want to read her writing that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't remember how true this is to the book.
Sure.
But this sort of thing, this path where a fledgling writer writes lurid or overly romantic stories, and then somebody wisely says, write what you know, and they go back and they write about their home life, and it's wonderful. Not an original plot line, yes. And we are going to see it again when at some point we watch Anne of Green Gables. That's there too. And I don't know, I sort of find it tedious to see writers portrayed in fiction, because I don't know, often I feel like, well, in Little Women I think it makes sense, but there are other movies that we're going to talk about where the character is a writer, and I'm like, why? You have not shown yourself to be a good writer. I don't understand this. So my hackles get up a little bit when a character is a writer, but this is different. But there are a lot of tropes in it, because the people who are writing the books and the screenplays are writers themselves, and so they write what they know, and they put all that stuff in there. But I did think this time I noticed at the beginning of the story, at the beginning of the movie, there's the sisters have like a family newspaper that they put together, and Jo's contribution to it is lurid stories and various things. And they're each expected to write something. Well, Beth doesn't know what to write, and she turns in a recipe for squash, I think it was. And she's like, I don't know what to write. And Jo says, the thing to know about writing is don't write what you know. And I was like, yes, I see where this is going, even though I already knew. But, it's, I find that hokey, but whatever.
Well, it's that idea that nobody thinks their life is exciting.
Yes.
Even when it is, because you're living it. Yes. You don't think it's particularly exciting. So you're like, well, if I write about what I know, it's boring.
Yeah.
But almost anybody, a slightly fictionalized version of almost anybody's life, makes for a good story if you just know how to do it right.
Well, and that's, I think everybody has a good story in them, even if it's based on their own life. You just have to figure out how are you cropping this, right? Yeah. Like, some people want to tell their whole life story. No. Like, these 2 years, that was interesting. Or this part of your life when viewed through this lens, or whatever. But I had never noticed that line before. You never write what you know. And then she comes around at the end. That was,
That's called an arc. Right. We writers call it an arc, Marian.
We call that.
I don't know if you know that.
We call that foreshadowing.
For something.
Yeah. So Jo is the main character of the story, but the sisterhood together, the four sisters as kind of a unit, and the bonds between them are up there too. Mm-hmm. The idea of four female characters who are, again, together and work as a unit and everything, and that you see that in fiction all the time. Golden Girls, Sex and the City. If there was one other one that I forgot, now I forgot what it was. There is a TV show that I contend was based on this. Right. Sisters. Did you ever watch Sisters? It was in the 90s.
Sister, the one with the twins?
No. Sisters, plural. It was on NBC. It was drama. It had George Clooney and Paul Rudd before they were in their more famous properties. So I knew them before.
The only reason that I know the name of that show is because I've heard that trivia that was kind of
okay. Yeah. Well, those also were four sisters. The eldest, the Meg analog, was a little bit concerned with propriety and society and money and status. The second one, the Joe analog, was rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
The third one, the Beth analog, was kind of quiet and home focused. And the fourth one, the Amy analog, was, I don't know, kind of a spoiled brat. And to sweeten the pot, the Joe sisters, the Joe sister got divorced from her husband, and her husband married the youngest sister.
Okay.
Yes. And their father had died. And so it was just all about that, and no one, I guess, admits to having watched this show. So no one will agree with me that that's based on that, but it's absolutely there.
Oh yeah. So. But that archetype, I mean, facts of life.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
That's just like, hey, 4 girls and they're all four young women. They're all a particular, they've all got and there's literally a Joe in that one. And she's a tomboy. There's 4 sisters, yada, yada, yada.
Well, and had there been a BuzzFeed in 1868 or whenever it was, there would have been a quiz. Which March sister are you?
Oh, yeah.
I should confess, I aspire to being a Joe. Mm-hmm. I think I am more of a Meg.
Probably.
Yeah. I would like to be a Joe. When it comes to the other sisters, or the other, female quartets, I'm definitely a Miranda. The other ones, I don't know. BuzzFeed needs to come out with a quiz for the other ones.
Yeah. Get on that, BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
BuzzFeed editors who listen to our podcast.
And then it can turn into, which quartet are you?
Yeah. Is your squad the Little Women or the Facts of Life girls
or are you sisters? And also Celia Ward plays the Joe version in that one, and she's one of my girl crushes. She's beautiful and glamorous, and she was a Chi Omega just like me, so we're practically BFFs.
I mean, basically,
right?
You're basically sisters,
right? We are sisters.
I mean, yeah,
we are
technically.
Chi Omega is for a lifetime.
It's apparently sisterhood
never stops.
That's what I'm told.
TM. Anyway, but in addition to, I contend, inspiring sisters, there have been umpteen versions of Little Women. There was a version, I think one in the 30s and one in the 40s, or maybe they were both. Anyway, I don't know. One of them, Katharine Hepburn played Joe, and the other, June Allison, played Joe. I think there was one in the 70s where Susan Day of the Partridge Family played Joe.
All right. Sure.
There was one most recently that I think was on Masterpiece Theater where Maya Hawke, who was in Stranger Things, I think was Joe. And then Christmas of 2019, the most recent one came out with Saoirse Ronan as Joe. And a bunch of people that you, Dave, don't know, but Emma Watson was Meg.
I know that person.
I know you do. That's
that name.
That's why I'm telling you her name. I'm not going to bother with the other ones because you'll be like, who?
Yeah.
Who? Is that Billy Zane?
That's not a me thing. That's a you thing. Billy Zane is a you thing.
I was turning it around. We're going to explain the Billy Zane joke at some point.
Yeah, soon.
The interesting thing about, if you look at Louisa May Alcott's actual life and Little Women, she, in fact, did not get married and have children. Mm. And spoiler for the 2019 film, they flip the storytelling around so that at the end there's some question of, did Joe actually end up with a professor and write her book? Did she actually have both, or did she have to choose one or the other? Which I thought was an interesting take on it. It kind of goes back to this question that people like to ask about, can women really have it all? And I think, well, nobody can have it all.
Right.
If a woman wants to have some semblance of a career and some semblance of a family, there's part of it that you can't have, but you can have bits and pieces of it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't especially like that the 2019 version set it up that you could do one or the other.
Yeah.
And not both.
Interesting.
But in none of the versions of Little Women do we see 5 years after, when, the baby's crying. Well, I have to finish the draft. I don't know. But anyway, that's just an interesting twist in the new version.
What do you got? You looking at the list?
I am. Okay, let's talk about each of the sisters.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, so Jo is the most obvious. I relate to Jo so much. Like I said, I aspire to be Jo, but
Yeah.
she's a tomboy. She feels like she's awkward. She calls herself ugly. She feels like she doesn't fit in. She, just has these dreams, and I really relate to that. And I think at the time, the idea of a woman not fitting into the mold of what a woman, quote, should be, there was even less tolerance for that then. So the fact that Alcott creates this character who isn't prim and proper, and the angel of the hearth was this archetype of the time. I think that gives a lot of readers permission to be that person. In the 2019 movie, it's more explicit that the mother was a lot like Jo when she was younger, and she kind of smoothed out her rough edges and kind of harnessed her passions and put them into some kind of work.
Yeah.
And I think the message is like, you can do that too, which I don't mind necessarily. Yeah.
The reality is that the society wasn't ready for that yet, or that sort of thing happens. Like compromises are made because it's sometimes it becomes about your own personal happiness versus like changing the world.
Yeah,
and sometimes you're just like, no, I'm not ready to be the one that pushes that boundary just yet.
Well, and also going back to you can't. If you can't have it all, if you want to do this career thing and this family thing, then you can't be the one who changes the entire world.
Yeah.
Like, I think you can have some career and some family, but if you want to change the world, it's hard to have a family at the same time. You kind of have to balance.
And it's kind of like a Star Wars thing, right? Like, you think Anakin is the savior, but his destiny is to give birth to Luke, who you think is, it's the father Luke, who you think is the savior. Yeah. Like it's like that. Like sometimes your job is
you're the conduit.
To smooth out enough of the road so that the next generation can smooth out the rest of it, vice versa. Yeah. So like maybe she came to that realization at some point in her life.
Yeah. Or you lay the groundwork so that somebody else can do something, or you raise the child who will do something. That's my goal right now. Like, I'm not going to do anything special, but it's all on our kid.
Yeah, no pressure.
Because that's healthy, right?
Yeah, no pressure. That's totally, as far as I can tell, that's normal and how it's supposed to be.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, that's 100%. Never warped anybody.
But also, shout out to Mr. March, right? Like, I'm not to be all, men's rights.
Yeah,
on you
please don't
here.
Be all men's rights.
No.
Women,
totally.
Men are superfluous here.
But at that time, like, he is a bit of an anomaly himself.
Yeah.
Being the patriarch of a household full of women and not telling them all that, not ruling with an iron fist and letting his wife do all of, he knew what he was getting into. And, so I think that's not it's not his story.
It's not,
obviously, but it's kind of like, it's just sort of like, sometimes it's usually in a story like this, the man changing the world or doing something big, and the wife in the background not given enough due. So it's only fitting that it's flipped the other way. But like at that time, that would have been a big deal for him. And he would have also almost certainly dealt with a lot of like social stigma and stuff.
Well, I think
you don't control your wife or your daughter.
I think they did. I'm sure. Well, the other thing is, you would also see the male as the antagonist, holding back the woman from doing something, and that's not it.
They don't go that direction.
Well, I think part of that was, I'm fuzzy on my American history / literature. She mentions in passing transcendentalism, which was a movement that they were part of, that I think was somehow associated with the Quakers. I don't know if the Alcotts were Quaker. The Marches don't appear to be of any faith, really. Yeah. I would think today, if they had to choose a faith, they'd be Unitarian Universalists.
Sure.
They're like that level of, sort of vaguely bohemian. But I think Quakerism for sure, and I think Transcendentalism were focused on equality and the importance of education. And that's why there's a throwaway line. Your father had to close his school because he admitted a black child. They say a little dark girl, which I guess was the polite way to talk about it then.
And even the daughters, have that carry that view forward, and like they're concerned about where the silk comes, how it's made. Even if it doesn't come from the South, well, it still comes from this kind of labor.
Child labor in the mills.
So
and
they seem to be extremely progressive. Some of their viewpoints are progressive even for our time right now.
Yes.
Caring about who made your
coat. We keep forgetting about. It's not U.S. children, so why do we care? Well, and Jo has an argument so after she says to Laurie, I can't marry you, she goes and stays with a friend of her mother's in New York. The woman, I guess, is widowed and runs a boarding house, and Jo is there to tutor the daughters. And she at one point is sitting in on a conversation with the male boarders, and they're talking about the question of should women have the right to vote, and I think should former slaves have the right to vote
why
too. It's
should
all
they have those rights?
Well, and they mention an argument that was pretty common at the time, from then, like the 1850 on up to when women did get the vote in 1920, that women are a force for moral good, and that's why they deserve the vote. And her argument is that has nothing to do with it. We are citizens,
right?
And that's why we deserve the vote. And I think of that whenever, you see people saying, oh, there should be more female heads of state because then there wouldn't be any wars. And I'm like, no, women can be just as bloodthirsty and egotistical and mistake prone as men. I don't.
The problem is they haven't had the same opportunities to reveal that aspect.
Right. I don't. I mean, like, yes, I think more diversity in any function is better for everybody.
Yes.
But let's not pretend that women are saints and would never go to war, because Margaret Thatcher went to war.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton would have gone to war. Like, so anyway, I like that argument of Joe's. I think it still holds truth about some things today.
Oh yeah. I mean, the truth of it is, they should vote because it's a human right in our society. Yeah. Same with skin color or sex. It doesn't matter. And I think she makes that point in the movie, which I think is, it kind of creates that question of, right, if women should vote because they're virtuous, are we letting men vote because they're not?
Right.
Like, are men allowed to vote because they're monsters and therefore because they're opposite?
Is there a virtue
they have
test
no virtue
that I didn't know about?
Right. Yeah. Like the long and short of it is everybody should be allowed to participate in the government. Yeah. And as few hindrances should be placed on that as possible.
Yeah. Well, and if you take that further, people should be allowed to vote even if they're uneducated or ill-informed or any of these things. And sometimes
both ways.
I roll my eyes so much every election season, no matter what election it is. There's always somebody on the news who's, I don't like so-and-so because I don't like the typeface in her campaign ads. And I'm like, seriously? But if I start putting limits on who's qualified to vote, then other people will too. And then we... Yeah.
But seriously, though, I mean, right, as we sit here right now, you have to admit that if a candidate came up who was progressive and checked all the boxes for you and was absolutely right up your alley, and it was a woman, and pick whatever
and
other
used Comic Sans
on all of their signage, and had the your and their mix up this person.
Now that poor grammar, yes, I would, because that is. Or I would write to them, hi, you're great, but you need a copy editor. No, I'm not going to volunteer. You can pay me for that. If you're at that level and you don't know you need to be writing me a check.
They're literally making all of their banners they have an old Apple with print shop on it and a dot matrix printer with continuous paper.
It takes 5 hours to make the poster on the connected paper.
Look, we've only got 3 fonts. We've got Impact, we've got Comic Sans, and we've got Times New Roman.
Yes, and all of the posters have birthday balloons on the end because we have limited graphics.
That's all we got. We got birthday balloons, and we've got Halloween tombstones, and that's all we got to pick from.
I'm a little too delighted with this concept.
Yes.
Yeah, but I would be interested now to go back and read Little Women, the original, and learn a little more about the Transcendentalists and see how much of what Jo and her sisters talk about in the film is true to the ideas of the time.
Yeah.
This is going off the subject, but there's a passage in one of the Little House on the Prairie books where Laura is about to get married, and she says to her new soon-to-be husband, "I won't say that I'm going to obey you in the vows." Mm-hmm. And her husband, he's like, "What are you for women's rights? What is?" She says, "No, I don't want to vote. I'm just not going to say that I'm going to obey you because I can't do that." And it's sort of the throwaway thing, and I always stuck on that. And it's funny to think about. You could be smart, independent, headstrong, whatever, and still not care about voting.
Yeah.
This was in 1870, I guess, 80. So to have the marches be automatically, oh yes, women should vote, was that true to what they felt at the time? I don't know. Yeah. So I feel like I need to go back and read the book and see what it really said. What do you think about, should she have chosen Laurie or Friedrich? Laurie is Christian Bale. Friedrich is Gabriel Byrne.
I mean, so let's presume a life with Laurie would have been like when he proposes, he tells her, you don't have to write, or you can write if you want. Like, basically he was just like, I want to marry my best friend and do best friend shit with him. And I'm rich and from money, so you do whatever you want. You live the life you want.
Yeah. And I like his description of we could bash around Europe.
Yeah.
Like they would bash.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a version of her where she marries him and she continues to write this sort of lowbrow newspaper fodder. She says at one point that the stuff she writes is what they'll buy. But also I think there's a version of her where she no longer needing to make the money that she's getting these $5 a pops. That's what she says to Friedrich, is like, this is going to buy my sister a new coat and she's going to love it, when he's like, kind of sneering at her lowbrow writing. Given the ability to explore that on her own, she would have potentially found the same voice that she eventually found on her own. Yeah. Potentially,
That's
maybe
true. I never thought about that.
Given her own devices. Like, I don't think he, in the movie, he's not positioned as instrumental to that as maybe he should be or is supposed to be. Because basically he just critiques her work a couple of times, implying that it's a little below his standards or her abilities. Like, some people, like Stephen King is pretty happy. Like Dean Koontz is pretty happy. Nora Roberts and all of the pseudonyms or all the ghostwriters for
V.C. Andrews.
V.C. Andrews are probably all pretty satisfied, with what they're doing. Like, every writer doesn't have to be great. Yeah. Like, somebody's got to be writing the middle of the road stuff.
I think, you're right. I think it's easy to describe the movie as Friedrich inspires her to write Little Women. Yeah. But now that I look back on it, I think she was writing it really to keep Beth alive.
Right. Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think she would have gotten to that place, viewing that as the primary motivation, she would have gotten to that place just as easily without him.
Yeah. That's true.
And also, like, her not marrying Laurie has a negative effect on his life, because he spirals out of control for a few years.
Well, or was he just pouting because he couldn't have what he wanted? Well,
whatever. Like, I don't know. I mean, one way or the other, but he spirals out of control for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's a difficult question to answer because without reading the other books, we are not shown what her life with the other guy is like.
Yeah.
So, like, on a certain level, that's the dream. Like, marry your best friend who's rich and
you have no more problems,
fun stuff together. So
well, can I just say, like, strictly on a looks and sex appeal basis, you cannot go wrong.
Sure.
Both of them are snacks.
Sure.
And the way that Laurie proposes to her, he's got that breathless, like, I have loved you ever since I clapped eyes on you. Like, my heart.
Well, and they're just like, from the moment that they meet, they're
they're kindred spirits.
Yeah, like, absolutely. And like that's what you want. Like, I mean, is Friedrich going to give her a different thing? I mean, kind of, she gets her cake and gets to eat it too. Like, she still gets to be friends with her best bud, who is now married to her other sister, and gets her intellectual husband who's going to challenge her, and they're going to do great things with their school or whatever.
Yeah. Well, she adjusts to so Laurie comes home from Europe.
Yeah.
And is like, hi, guess what? I married Amy. And Joe had no idea that this was happening.
Yeah.
I would need to take a minute to get back on track. And she appears to be like, oh, nope, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, there are plenty of other movies where this is the main, like, the central movement of the plot, when the person that you rejected ends up marrying someone, and then you're like,
wait, I wanted them.
Right. You realize that's enough to make you realize the mistake you made. Yeah. But I think for her, it didn't really.
Well, there's Laurie is in his office and he gets a letter from Joe that says Beth has died.
Right.
Amy can't come home. And he doesn't read the whole letter. He just puts it down and dashes off to go to Amy. And then the camera pans in on the rest of the letter and it says, come home to me.
Yeah.
Which I take as, maybe I'm rethinking this. I'm lonely and let's try. But it's never really explored. I think that's explored a little bit maybe in the 2019 movie. But
maybe.
Regardless, if the last time I saw somebody, he was pledging his devotion to me and now he's married to my sister, I need a minute.
Sure. More than the actual minute that she takes.
Yes. Oddly, so I mentioned similarities between this and Anne of Green Gables, this idea of a proposal that sort of comes out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love you. I want to be with you. No, we can't be together. We'd fight all the time. Okay, then I hate you. You're going to fall in love. And I hope it's, that's an Anne of Green Gables too.
Yeah.
So what was in the water in the 1860s, 70s? Because there was a
lot of women turning down proposals.
Yeah. From very, very, very attractive men. We'll talk about Anne of Green Gables later.
At another date.
Yes.
Give me some time to recover. Give yourself some time. Is Anne of Green Gables a weepy thing? Okay, give yourself.
There's a lot of I got to clean out the tear ducts now. Yeah,
give yourself a month or two.
Yeah. So we're talking about Laurie. Okay, Amy. I don't understand why all of a sudden they're in love. I think part of it is that it's too. So Kirsten Dunst plays Amy in the first half of the movie at age like 12. And then some undetermined amount of time has passed.
Yeah, 4 years we know for sure.
Right.
Because it says that. Then some other amount of time.
Yeah. And then Samantha Mathis is Amy for the last half of the movie. And I think that's part of it because, I mean, even though it's the same character, it's a different actress. And so the relationship doesn't really gel for you because you're seeing this new person. But
sure,
whatever. I hand wave it. It's fine. The Laurie and Amy relationship always leaves me a little bit cold.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit weird because they're, when he sort of sees her for the first time in France or wherever they are, where she's gone off to Europe to learn to paint with Auntie March, who is
the money in the family,
the best character in this.
She's and in the new, I'm sorry, I keep bringing up the new version, but you need to know these things. In the 2019 version, she's played by Meryl Streep.
Oh, nice.
Which is, that's going to be a good. They invested in that character.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's an exchange between them, and basically he kind of lets slip that he's like, he thinks he's destined to be a part of the March family.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want you to marry me just for my family.
Yeah.
To be a part of my family. And then they part ways, and I guess he takes some time to soul search or whatever. And
yeah,
if
it were really a movie about him, we'd have a montage of him, working late at the office. And,
right. Yeah. Well, yeah, he goes to get himself back on track so that he can, be the provider or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that relationship is a little bit weird. And I feel like there is more to explore there of why he married her, like how that whole thing went. And then also, was he really just trying to get into that family? Because I like the way he fits into the family in the early stuff. Because he's just like the kid next door and is acts funny and silly with them and plays all their little games that they play, and
in a way that he can't do with his grandfather or his tutor. Right. And he's an only child. We never see his parents. I think his mother died. We don't know where his father is.
Yeah.
His grandfather is his father's father.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he has nobody to be a kid with.
Yeah, and he's like
15, 16.
Yeah, and he's sort of like adapted or adopted himself into this family.
Yeah.
For these purposes, and probably felt like he felt like a part of that family, and at some point is like, how do I actually become a part of this family?
I guess
I marry one of these.
Yeah.
One of these women. Yeah. So that's. I feel like there's another.
Yeah, I think that's probably more explored in the sequels.
Yeah, probably. Hope so.
One of the sequels is called Little Men, and the other is called Joe's Boys. And I think it's largely focused on their school, but the other families are there too. Because I know that there's a little bit about Amy and Laurie have a daughter who they name Beth, and there's more plot about them. So maybe I should read the other ones despite all the preachiness.
There you go.
And report back.
Get through it.
Yeah.
Pick it for your book club.
Do it. Oh.
Make other people suffer through it.
I don't think they would do that for me.
Do it. They don't have a choice.
Yeah.
This book club is not a democracy.
It's cheerocracy. I can't talk. It's a cheerocracy.
It's a booktatorship.
Right. There we go.
And he who picks the book has the power.
Right.
She who picks the book.
Sorry. Right. Yeah.
Are we still talking about the characters? What are we doing?
Yes. So
let's work through it.
Amy. Yeah. I don't know. Amy, I warm to the least. I feel like she's just she's a typical youngest child. She's petted and indulged, and
there's nothing more that I enjoy in a movie, because she does this in a couple of movies, than Kirsten Dunst doing her like young, kind of smart mouthy. Yeah, because she's this way in Interview with a Vampire.
Yes. And
in this, just like she has the best lines. The one about the hair.
Oh God,
when Joe sells her hair, she's like, your best feature, or whatever.
Oh, you're one beauty.
You're one beauty.
It's Winona Ryder.
Just
Come on, but
it's 1994 Winona Ryder.
Yeah. Luminous. She's perfect.
But just she has great lines, and she has all these like little character traits. Like she thinks her nose is too big. She wears a clothespin on it.
Oh, that's great.
All the time. I don't know what I think about the character. I just know that I like the performance that's happening. Yeah. And she's petty and like burns Joe's manuscript in the fire.
That is kind of a litmus test for, can I be friends with you? If I meet a woman my age or, older, younger, because Little Women is timeless.
Yeah.
Would you have forgiven Amy for burning the manuscript? And if somebody says, oh, sure, I'm sorry, we can't be friends. If they say, oh my God, I would have let that bitch drown in the river. I'm like, we are besties. Let's go. Like,
would you have saved her when basically gets a get out of jail free card by falling through the ice?
I might have saved her, but I would still be mad.
Right. Yeah.
And so Susan Sarandon is Marmee, like this saint of motherhood, and says, oh, don't let the sun go down in your anger. And I'm like, bitch, you know how long it took me to write that? I will be mad for as long as I want to.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't like that advice in general.
Yeah.
Like, people who say that only get in fights at 8 a.m.
Right.
Sometimes you get mad at 9 o'clock at night, and I need to stew about it for a while.
Need some time. Yeah.
Yes. I am doing some great finger pointing
finger
here.
wagging.
You all can't see it, but
yeah, it's way that was way over the line.
Yes.
Yeah, way over the line. Yeah. And then, Samantha Mathis, like, she's just
it's a little bland as adult Amy. Like, she's had the rough edges smoothed off her, but too much, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, you have so little time with her.
Yes.
Like, the way that they without explicitly explaining it, the way that they tell you that she is also supposed to be Amy is, first of all, Amy's the only one with blonde hair.
Yeah.
And she has these curls. And in the first scene that Samantha Mathis is playing Amy in, they're like linger on her, and you can see these blonde curls. And
then I don't think we see the curls ever again.
It's like they stay on her long enough.
Yeah.
I feel like they did like test screenings.
Right.
Where they were like, they had a camera that was actually on the audience and like watching everybody.
Do you get it?
And then when they could see the subtle change of their facial expression of like, like okay. And it took number 7.
Yeah.
45 seconds. So we got 46 seconds is how long we linger on her. Because the slowest person in our screenings got it within, something like that. Like, they were just like, here we go. Like, this is you get it. Okay. Now we're all on the same page.
So interestingly, this was the first film version of Little Women that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only one where they use a different actress for young Amy and older Amy.
Okay.
All the other ones, same 4 actresses all the way through.
Sure. Yeah.
And so this was my expectation. There's going to be 2 Amy's, even though Beth is only a year or 2 older than Amy. So to go from, young teen to young woman, it's roughly the same thing. So you would think different actresses for that. But I guess Beth dies too soon to really get a second actress.
Yeah.
But a lot of people commented that in the 2019 version, Florence Pugh, I think that's how you say it, from Midsommar was Amy. And she has this sort of deep voice for a woman anyway.
Yeah.
So seeing her playing a 12-year-old was a little odd. And then she's an adult and they're like, it's awkward. But this is all people of my generation who saw the 94 version where there's 2. So it's
right. Yeah.
I don't know how you do that, but
yeah, I mean, I think there's a way to do it. But it needs to be, it takes the right person. Because that's not enough. It's almost not enough of a time jump. Because we're thinking like maybe 6 years.
Well, that's the confusing thing. I was looking up, like, how old are they all supposed to be at the beginning and then at the end?
Yeah.
And about Beth, they said, this is based on the book, that she was 23 when she died and she's 13 at the start.
Sure.
So that's 10 years. But then here we're talking about a 4-year jump. And there's some on either side.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's a 4-year. Yeah. It's a 4-year jump from one actress to the other for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I think it's as a filmmaking challenge, I wonder, I wonder how you go about addressing that, because 4 years is not, they didn't, throughout the whole rest of the movie, they didn't do anything else to age anybody else. They Christian Bale had different facial hair a couple times, but they didn't really do, they aged no one else significantly
Everybody else
enough.
looks about this.
You could just easily make all of the characters a little bit older.
Yeah.
And then eliminate the need. Like, if she's 14 instead of 12, you can cast an actress that can pass for, when you have 30-year-olds playing high school students, like, you can cast a 20-something-year-old actress who can pass for.
If I can buy Andrea Zuckerman as being 18. 16, we can. Yeah. Well, and apparently they did consider, I think they considered Reese Witherspoon to play Amy the whole time, because she's somewhere in the middle between those 2. And I don't know why they didn't do that.
Well, and now you could just do some digital trickery, like you could shoot them in such a way that they're going to appear smaller when they're younger.
Yeah.
You can even just do some straight up CGI de-aging stuff.
Well, I think there's a lot you can do with costuming too.
Oh, totally.
And hair. Although I think to illustrate the Marches being a little bit out of the mainstream, they wear their hair down a lot more than proper women of the time would have. But, you can say hair down is the girl, hair up is the young woman.
Yeah. If a large part of the hobbits and human scenes in Lord of the Rings were all accomplished in camera without special effects, you could have made an adult size actress appear 12 for 40 minutes.
Anyway, I don't know. Well, but then we wouldn't have Kirsten Dunst, and I do enjoy her performance.
I would rather you figure out a way to make Kirsten Dunst seem 18 at 12 than the vice versa. Like,
that's true.
All the way, because the thing is, I get that character is supposed to age, but 1000% of the joy of that character just evaporated the moment that actor's shift changes. And
she's so bland.
And if you give me that, if you show me some of that, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But when you go from this like the comic relief of the first half of the movie, and then she's just serious and she's going to be a painter,
she's
and
like
she's
a robot.
she's not going to marry a pauper and all this, like, the turn in that character, and it's another, show don't tell. Like, they don't show or really tell. It's just, hey, this change happened. We don't know what killed all of her joy, but something did, and now she's this.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Nobody's perfect, but I think Amy had her rough edges sanded off a little too much there.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about Beth, who doesn't have any rough edges ever.
Yeah, Beth is a saint, and then she dies.
Yeah, so when I was watching the 2019 version, I realized.
Did we watch the 2019 version?
No,
because I feel like you've talked about it
a lot. No, I saw it with my mom. That was the last time I saw my mom in person.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, no, miss my mom.
Yeah.
Anyway,
do you want a bottle of wine?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I would cry some more. I was like, why is she playing with dolls the whole time? And I'm kind of like, she's infantilized.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she's very, I guess cripplingly shy and just sort of a homebody anyway. And that I get, but like a 14, 15-year-old should not say, as Beth does early in the movie, Evangeline, my doll, and I will make you some tea.
Yeah.
No, that's like a 4-year-old says that. Maybe an 8-year-old, but not a 15-year-old. So Beth is based on a real life Alcott sister, and I am sorry to the Alcott sister whose name I am besmirching.
Yeah.
But like, grow up, Beth. Or don't, because you'll.
Yeah. Well, also, I think it's telling that, like, she basically says that, like, from a young age, she had called it, that she wasn't going to be the one that had adventures.
Yeah.
That she just wanted to be, she was always sort of happy with what she had predicted would be her lot in life, which was just stay home. Be that sister.
And that part's fine. It's just so I wonder if Beth were a real person, I would be like, is she on something, she's not neurotypical. Something is, and I'm reading way too much into that. And Beth is very sweet, and it's her storyline that makes me cry.
Yeah.
I teared up when Mr. Lawrence has a piano at his house, and he learns that Beth plays, and he brings it over for her.
Yeah.
And he says, I had a little girl who played it, and she died, and now I'm giving it to you. And I just, oh God. And the 2019 version does more of that. She invites her over to his house.
Yeah.
And says, you have some privacy and play this. I'm going to go. But he actually sits on the stairs and listens to her and has a tearful little moment. And Chris Columbus just wrecks me in that. But yeah, so that's when the tears started this time, is when she gets her piano and he talks about his dead daughter. And then when Beth dies, she's, everyone leaves me alone, but this time I'm going off on the adventures. And I just, and I was sobbing behind you. I just, and it's Claire Danes sells it.
Oh yeah.
She's got this way of, like, her chin kind of throbs. And you can tell that the character is meant to be holding back tears or is very upset, and it's very affecting. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'd like Beth in real life, but her death makes me cry.
Yes. Yeah. And I like some of the symbolism in that, in her death scene, where the window's open,
Yeah.
because it was always a thing, like you leave the window open so
Yeah.
the soul can get
Yeah.
out. That's why houses are haunted.
That was a very quick death, though. Like, she's just sitting there talking, and then boom, 30 seconds later, and I was like, I don't know, but okay, it's drama.
I mean, yeah. And then all the trees and window blew outside. She walked away and then turned back around. I like that. I like the way a lot of that was shot and stuff. Yeah, yeah. It was very good, very affecting. Yeah.
Yeah. Presumably after Beth's funeral, because everyone is in black. So Amy at this point is in Europe with Aunt March, and the Marches get a letter saying Aunt March can't travel, therefore Amy can't travel.
Yeah.
And Joe says, "Will we never all be together again?" Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, okay, well, so no, because you just
right. one of them died.
And that is kind of heartbreaking. The idea that like your family is never going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. It sucks, but it's also the unfortunate and soul crushing reality of life.
Well,
like it really.
So Beth early in the movie gets scarlet fever. Mm-hmm. And then that weakens her heart. And then I guess eventually her heart just gives out, and that's what she eventually dies of. Scarlet fever is what happens when you get strep throat and don't take antibiotics. Eventually turns into, I think I've also heard rheumatic fever, but so you can cure it with antibiotics. So thank you, Mr. whoever it was who created penicillin, because nobody dies. Well, some people don't die. People who get
stuff like that is all but eliminated in the modern world.
Yes, I was looking up scarlet fever, and it says very rare in the U.S. Like very rare when you have antibiotics.
Yes,
but so it's a bacterial infection. But then they say, "Oh, Meg and Joe, you had scarlet fever when you were babies, so you're fine." That's not how bacterial infections work. But again,
right, yeah.
That's nobody asked for my medical review of this. So Beth is a saint, really.
Yes. Yeah. Well, she gets scarlet fever because she goes to bring like a single potato that they can spare to the German immigrants who live in a shack in the woods. That
had to be terrifying. Because, I mean, the German immigrants, they don't speak any English. Mm-hmm. And she comes there and she's handing over the food, and they're just talking at her in German, and she has no idea what they're saying. And you can tell by her face, she's just freaking out. Like, and they're talking at her and something's wrong, but she doesn't know what. Mm-hmm. And I think watching this time, I just realized how terrifying that would have been. And then she gets sick instantly.
Yeah.
Poor Beth.
Yes. But also, like, that's one of the things about this family is they are very much shown to be on the decline.
Yeah.
But still constantly giving everything that they can spare.
Yeah.
To people less fortunate to them. I think, like, you're first introduced to the mom after she's coming back from having been volunteering, giving out food to the needy and stuff.
Yeah.
So, it's like, it's that kind of thing where they're shown to be just not all saints, but good people.
Whatever you have, you can spare some of it for somebody who has even less.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a philosophy that I like and aspire to. Yeah. I don't live up to that. But
no, you don't.
I don't want scarlet fever.
Yeah.
But, okay. So Meg. Yeah. I like I said, I aspire to being Joe. I think I'm really a Meg because I like nice things. Like Meg, Amy is going to school and she says, "Oh, I don't have any limes. Limes are the trend, and I need to, pay back, buy other people limes because limes. And Meg says, "Oh, I know what it is to go without luxuries. Here you go." Mm-hmm. I get that, and I find myself doing that honestly in my parenting because we had none of that stuff when I was growing up. Not really because there wasn't the money for it, but because that was frivolous.
Yeah.
And why would you spend money on that?
Totally.
So now I find myself like, oh, is this trendy? Will this make you popular? Okay, sure. Let's put down the money for it.
Son, do you want this thing?
Yes.
that will make you popular?
That other people will like you for, even though that's a dumb reason for them to like you. Well, let's pay for it. You know, like I have
Sold.
to. Yeah, as he gets older, I'm gonna have to scale that back.
Yes, you are quite a bit.
But I relate to Meg in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Meg is the least interesting character in this thing, and yeah, she's probably she's the one that like makes the least progress as far as like anyone, you know, breaking down any barriers or changing any expectations of women, or she is just kind of like she marries some random suitor that
he's a prude. I don't like Mr. Brooke.
Yeah, I
don't get the appeal at all.
I can't really tell whether this is Eric Stoltz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell. Like, there's some he's not wealthy, so she's not marrying him for money.
No,
but also they're never really shown to be like in passionate love, other than they kiss a couple times and he steals her glove.
Yeah, I don't see I don't know. I don't see the appeal,
but back then, you know, maybe like what else was she gonna get? She didn't have suitors lining up for her, like, even despite trying at one point, you know, to go out on the town or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe she was just like, well, this is what I got. This is the best I can do.
Well, so, you know, you say she made the least progress. I think the flip side of you shouldn't have to choose between a work life and a family life is it's okay to choose the family life and to have a good, honest home and raise good children and raise them to be good people. I think some conservative commentators would say that feminism tells women you can't do that. I don't think that's true.
Sure.
But I think I definitely felt like I was not living up to my full potential when I was staying at home, taking care of our young child. And I had a plan to go back. So that was, you know. And as it happened when he was in school and there was nothing for me to do during the day, I was thoroughly depressed and I didn't enjoy life at all. I don't like being a full-time housewife. Full-time caregiver is one thing, but when they don't need care, that's different.
Yeah. And that doesn't surprise me. I mean, you're not telling me new information.
Right. I know.
Yeah, because I think it's not going to fulfill you, but.
Right. But but at the time, so this was a much more labor intensive running of a household.
Yes.
And she had twins. I think the character Meg she represents, it is possible to be fulfilled by having a small life.
Sure, yeah.
You don't need to do big things.
Right. Well, she's the one, when I say makes the least progress, I mean, she's the one that seems like if I started you out at 3 and you made it to 3.2,
well,
like, that's what I mean by that. Like,
measuring what?
She improves her situation by the least.
I don't know what your measuring stick is. What are you measuring?
I mean, like, Joe follows her dreams to be a writer.
Yeah.
You know, Amy follows her dreams to be a painter.
Well, or does she?
At least then she follows her dream to marry well. Like, yeah. She follows her dream. Like, as the oldest, it almost seems like Meg doesn't have any, even though the part of Beth's character arc is that she is satisfied to just be the one that never leaves home and isn't looking for adventure. Meg is kind of like, she's the one that she has a moment in the movie where she goes to a party and she's wearing a dress that she made, and all of the socialite women are like, no, we're going to adopt you. And they make her up in a dress, and she goes out and she pretends to be one of them for, like, you know, half an evening, and before Lori calls her on it.
And I don't think she behaves that badly. Like, he's talking about how revealing her dress is, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't seem that bad. But I'm looking at it from 2021.
She didn't have a lot to reveal, but
unnecessary.
I know that was.
Jeez.
But no. I just mean, I think she doesn't know where she's going or what she wants, and ends up settling, is what it feels like.
I don't know. I think early on, you know, Amy says, I want to marry a rich man. And Meg says, I would rather marry a poor man that I love. And I think she does. I don't know why she loves him.
Right. That's the classic show don't tell. Like, I'm not convinced that it did. And again, it's a movie. They've got 2 hours to do this. It's maybe in the book it's more explored. I don't know.
Well, it is a little bit. And they go into this. There's a long section, and my mom remember this too, where they have a fight about how to discipline the children, and he's really kind of a prig, and I don't, and so there is more about their relationship, and so maybe it's more fully formed,
and
in the book.
So maybe what I'm getting is just the lack of the surrounding information in the movie. I mean, she basically just feels like, she feels like she starts at 3 and gets to like 3.2. Like, she doesn't necessarily improve her life over. And when I say improve, I mean like follow her dreams or do the things she wanted to do, or do something that she, I guess I should say, it doesn't seem like her character knows what she wants to do. So she ends up sort of just in this sort of, because again, if you're going to tell me that she married for love and not money, show me that she married for love and not money. Because I don't get that. Yeah. Because again, their courtship is so awkward.
Well,
when one of the main aspects of him liking her is that he steals her glove.
Well, the Victorians were not big on passionate displays, but she says he's kind, and he shows, he takes their mother to DC to visit their father who's been wounded, and all these, I don't see the appeal, but he's not terrible.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's not terrible. Not at all.
He is kind of a priss, though.
Sure, a little bit.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a.
But they both are big on propriety. So they've got that in common.
No, I think they're probably a good match for each other. Yeah. Yeah. And you can't, when you have a bunch of people in everybody doesn't need to knock it out of the park. To use a baseball analogy, the third hitter is called the cleanup hitter because the other 2 guys were expected to get on base, not hit home runs. Sometimes you got to have a character that just does the bare minimum, and you got characters that are there to screw up. You've got characters that are there to be the heroes and the ones that people relate to. And then you've got the characters that are just there to be average and do average type stuff. And that's just what she ends up being, is like the character that doesn't aspire to much and achieves exactly what she aspires to.
Since I have identified myself as probably a Meg, I'm not taking this as a compliment. I don't like what you're insinuating.
I think you're a Meg in that you kind of just, you took life as it came at you. Like you wanted, you fancied yourself the one that would go off and change the world. And it's just like everybody does. Everybody's the Joe in their story until they realize they're the Meg or the Beth or whatever. You're always the hero in the story until you realize that you were a comic sidekick or whatever, and I think if I say I'm the Meg, that's what I mean. Is that like I came out of my childhood, I was going to change my name to Rick and be a scientist by day and a rock star by night, and I ended up working in, not changing my name and working in networking, and I didn't become the star of the show.
Well, and I think you are far more satisfied with a Meg life than I am. So
I'm loving the Meg life.
I'm a bit of a Meg Joe hybrid. I think. Well, and actually, it's funny. So when Joe is defending these kind of lurid, it's like a pulp fiction, but the Victorian era,
not the movie
version, right? Lots of murders and things. She's defending this stuff that she's writing to Friedrich, and he says at one point, "It's well written, but it's just, is this you?" And she's like, "Well, this is what it's what sells." And so currently I work in marketing, and I write stuff that is not changing the world for anybody. And I'm kind of like, is this really, like, I went to college for this. Is this real? I aspired to be a novelist. And, we talked about All the President's Men a couple of episodes ago. I thought I was going to be the next Woodward and Bernstein. Me, one person, was going to be 2 people.
Both of them.
And now I'm doing this. And I was kind of like, oh, I recognize that. She's just writing because she has this skill, and it's, I think, a little painful to sit down and open up the chest of your mind and mine all that for something that's much harder to write than a lurid story about a serial killer. So, and I had not had that realization before. So I'm gonna have to think on that. I'm not pretending that I have a little women inside me, but like I said, everybody has some story to tell.
Yeah.
And, is mine worth writing down? I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm writing the 21st century version of stories about serial killers and daggers.
Yes. Well, and let me just say, I think you have a story to tell, and I have tried to encourage that throughout the course of our relationship. I hope that you will.
You keep saying no. You keep saying, "Oh, you're a great writer." You don't know that because I don't write anything that you read.
I think you have a story to tell, and I hope that you will tell it one day.
All right. Well, folks, if I do it while this podcast is still going, I'll tell you about it. Maybe that'll be our next podcast. Is just I read my work in progress.
Yeah. Yes. That's
because that's exciting.
Yes. Well, is this exciting? Is any of this exciting? Who knows? Who knows? But no, I think it's one of those things where you have something that you're passionate about, and then you realize the way to make money with that is not necessarily the way you're passionate about it. For instance, I always thought I would end up somewhere in the art field, and then as I started to actually go to like post high school education for art type stuff, I realized like the way that you make money at this is so boring and would end up with me hating it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it's there's a way to figure out how to make money with your passion, but it's almost not ever the way that is the most commercially viable. Like the way to make the most money reliably at writing is to write the boring stuff that needs to be written, but no one wants to do it. Now you can forego all that and take a huge chance and try to make it big with a passion project or something that really speaks. But that's a real risk. Like, especially when you're talking about writing, you're putting yourself out there. If you want to write something that's truly meaningful, you put yourself out there and you open yourself up, and there's every opportunity that people just go, no thanks.
Yeah.
But then if you really love writing and you want to do it for a living, the other option is to write ad copy, and you're just like, wow. And I know I'm not necessarily talking about you when I say this. I'm just saying apply that to anything. I've done more with my art in the years since I gave up on it, even though I've never made any money at it really. I've done more to explore it and enjoy it since giving up on it as a career. Yeah.
Well, we've talked to our 10-year-old on and off about the idea of how you pick a job. And I have said, sometimes you find a job that you really enjoy. Sometimes you find a job that you make money at. If you're really lucky, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But some people, the job is just a job, and the things that you really love, you do in your off time.
Yeah.
So that's writing or painting or music or art or whatever. The problem, I think, comes in when you've got other obligations.
Yeah. And
or as Bernie said in the paper, a callback to, you've got 8 hours for work, 8 hours for your family, 8 hours for your house. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
You can't do it all.
True.
And a lot of times the thing that you really love is what goes, because you think I'll do that later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. You always think there's more time, than realize suddenly that there's not.
Anyway, we're getting way off track, but, I think that's what we got about Little Women. I think we've done it all. Is there anything else that we need to say?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this is a movie that I'm sure it speaks to women in a great way.
Yeah. Does it not speak to you?
Well, I mean, yes, but not on that unique sort of level. Like I enjoy it. And I enjoy watching a lot of the character interactions and stuff. And I like seeing characters that have certain expectations placed on them, doing things that they enjoy. Like when all of the stuff with them in the attic or whatever, when they're putting on plays and they're doing their fake newspaper, and drawing mustaches on their faces and and using cats to play characters in plays and stuff.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff is great. And I imagine that could be really inspiring, especially for young women. Be like, hey, like you have permission to be silly and that this sort of imaginary life is not off limits. I mean, more for the time period, especially, but even today, like, this is enjoy yourself, do the things you want to do. All these things that they were doing in their little clubhouse, would have been sort of, if anyone had heard about them, they would have been socially unacceptable at the time. But like, just do stuff that you enjoy and don't let all these stereotypical things that you're expected to do because of your ethnicity or your gender or your social status hold you back. Like, enjoy life and have some fun. And I like the parts. Some of my favorite parts of this movie are the parts where they're showing that, where they're just showing them being like teenage girls and having fun in a way that teenage girls at that time probably weren't allowed to have fun.
Yeah, that's true. Because I think the prevailing view of young women, even 12, 13, 14 was, well, you'll be a wife and a mother soon, so let's get you ready for that.
Yeah.
And there was not really a sense of a teenager. You were a child and then you were a woman, and there was not a lot in between. So, yeah, you're right. I never thought about that. Exactly. But this kind of movie, unsurprisingly, makes me really wish I had a sister.
Oh, I'm sure.
Or two daughters or,
yeah,
something. Because there's something about sisterhood. But it's not to be. But anyway, so that's Little Women, folks. We hope you're still with us. Hope you're still listening. I feel like I've unburdened my soul a lot about a lot of things. I didn't cry, though. I sobbed during parts of the movie. I did not cry while talking about it. But hey, listen, folks, we would love to know what you think about Little Women. Do you have a favorite version? Do you like the 94 version as I do? Do you like the 2019 version, which we weren't technically talking about, but I certainly referred to a lot? Or do you like one of the earlier versions? Did you watch Sisters? And did you see the resemblance as I did? Let us know. We would love to hear from you. You can drop us a line at either Gmail or Twitter. Our handle is the same for both. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. We have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode. So check us out on your favorite podcast provider. We are on all the major ones as far as I know, specifically Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And while you're there, if you can rate, review, and subscribe, that would be fabulous. Makes us feel loved. I love to see that more people have listened to us. And if you just want to let us know that you're there, drop us a line and say, hi, I'm here. I'm listening.
Yes, she would love to hear from you.
That would be, yes, I do. I love when we have more listeners. So in 2 weeks, new show, Dave's going to be showing a movie to me. What are you showing to me, Dave?
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Which one is that? I have seen some of the Pee-wee movies, not all of them.
There's only, well, I guess technically there's 3. It's the first one.
The first one. Okay.
This is the one, this is before the television show, but after Pee-wee. Well, obviously it's after Pee-wee was a character.
Yes.
But yeah, so late mid-80s, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, directed by Tim Burton. Tim Burton's first movie.
I see. Okay.
First feature-length movie. Awesome. And we might even get the kid in here.
Yeah.
If I think he can survive Large Marge.
I tried to tempt him to watch this one. I said, there's no explosions in it. It's not scary. There's maybe a little bit of kissing. And he was like, oh yeah, no,
thank you.
No kissing. No kissing.
Thank you. And luckily, since Pee-wee is just an adult child,
yes,
he thinks about kissing the same thing that our current 10-year-old thinks about kissing, which is that it's gross.
Ew. Yeah. Anyway, so tune in 2 weeks for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And that's it. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.
Sorry, I just babble.